Well, listeners, there is a tour coming up that we know a lot of you are very, very excited about. Sylosis are coming to Australia for the first time since 2013, and we are so excited about this tour. So tonight we thought we would actually get Josh on the phone to chat a little bit about this amazing tour. So welcome to the program, mate.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Now, mate, as I said, you guys haven't been here since 2013, so there's a lot of eager Aussies awaiting this tour. Tell us a little bit about how you feel about heading back here as well.
I cannot wait. I genuinely mean it when I say it's our favourite place to play. I mean, my favourite place to tour for sure. Some of the other guys haven't been over to Australia yet, so I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised. But for me, the food, the coffee, the weather, the people, I think it's like there's a big kinship. I think a very similar kind of sense of humour and stuff to the UK. So yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, the shows I think are going to be awesome. I've been over there a lot, obviously, with Architects over the last 7 years. So I'm desperate to get back out there. The flight over there sucks, but the rest of it's going to be amazing.
How do you cope with that flight? That's one of the things I love to talk to people about because everybody seems to have a different way to cope. I know some people like to pop a sleeping pill and go off to sleep for the entire trip. Others like to bring their Nintendo Switch. What's your way of escaping the boredom on that flight?
Oh man, just the usual way. Just watching movies and eating food. I'll try and bring some snacks on. Yeah, it's a brutal flight or two flights. One thing that I've seen somewhere on the internet was like someone saying, "Oh, try this trick to get better sleep." So you're in your seat, stand up, turn around so you face your seat, then you put your knees or your feet, under the seat, which would be in front of you, which is now behind you, and you sort of like rest and put your face like on your arms, like where you would sit. Maybe I can't just explain it too well for radio, but I actually managed to sleep pretty well like that.
That's
and it looks ridiculous, but you'll be so tired that you just don't care what anyone thinks about you. So I'll try that out again if I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. The last time I did it, actually, the air conditioning stopped working on the plane about halfway through, so it was so hot that everybody was just falling asleep anyway.
Oh, nice.
So, mate, you mentioned your love affair with Australia, and of course that's only enhanced over the last few years with Architects as well. You mentioned some of the things that you love about Australia, but are you aware of that love coming back to you as well? Are you aware of how many Aussie fans you actually have?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a kind of like a surprising one because obviously we haven't been out there touring. We see it in like our streaming numbers, like coming from Australia. Like it's amazing. The amount of comments that we get, like come to Australia, have been more than anywhere else, it seems. So we feel confident and good about coming back there to be able to like just come back and headline and hope that the shows are going to be really good. So yeah, super grateful for, I guess like things have just picked up to the band just from streaming and the internet over the years, like the last few years, and we've maybe gained some new fans. But I think we've always had, a following over there. So apologies to our older fans that have been very patient with us, waiting for us to get back.
And of course, the last time you guys were here, it was for our legendary festival Soundwave that unfortunately is no longer with us. But that must have been such an amazing experience for you guys, because I know for us as fans, that was always the one festival that we used to love to go to every year. How did you find that experience playing at one of the most iconic festivals?
It was insane. So the year we did it was the Big Four, so it was like Metallica, Slayer, all those bands. So the very first night, Metallica hosted a barbecue for all the bands to go to, and they were there, and it was also like no crew is allowed, so just the guys in the bands or girls. And so that was crazy, and just getting to hang out with all the bands and Metallica guys coming doing the rounds, saying hello to everyone. The lineup was insane. Like, aside from those bands, I think maybe Blink-182 were on it, but Perfect Circle, Paramore, Ghost, just so many bands. And you end up flying on these like private, like charter flights. So it's not like a private jet; it's a normal plane, but just with the bands. So there's a real sense of camaraderie, and just had an amazing time. Did all the touristy stuff that first time. Ended up accidentally swimming with a shark in Perth. Like the alarm went off on the beach, everyone out of the water. There was like a tiger shark. You could see it swimming in the shallows. So got the full experience on that first trip.
Now, talking of big changes, of course, you're back with the band full time now as well. Tell us a little bit about that. How does that make you feel, and what kind of led you to make that decision?
It feels great to be back. Just it's a lot easier just to focus on one thing as well. And musically, like Sylosis is, always been my baby and a reflection of just the music that I listen to. Like I'm one of those few people that just listens to metal like all the time. So I just love like super heavy metal stuff. That's like what I grew up on. So yeah, it just feels like home. And luckily, like despite the fact we were on a hiatus, the band only seemed to grow in popularity, and we weren't like the biggest band ever. Like when we went on hiatus, so you could anticipate that there might be a bit of a drop off, and it'd be harder to come back from. But if anything, the band's grown in that period. So it's just super grateful to old fans and new fans to kind of stick in with us or discovering us in that period.
I was actually going to ask you about that because I found the same thing, because I've been hosting this show now for over 20 years, and I found that during that time when you guys were not around, I was getting a lot more requests for your music. Do you think it was a case of people not knowing what they had until they didn't have it anymore, or was it that because of social media and things like that, it was a lot easier to share songs for people to listen to? What do you put that down to?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both of those things, and I think we've always had, or it seems so more so now than ever, that we've always had like a kind of a cult like following, and that we're not necessarily the biggest band, but the fans that are into the band are like super into the band, and I think we've always put a lot of attention to detail and a lot of effort into the songs, and there's a lot for people to sink their teeth into with our music. And I think when people discover the band and get into the band, they end up getting really hooked. So those fans have sort of stayed kind of like fanatic, and I guess has also helped, draw attention to us or keep flying the flag. But also like during the pandemic, we, after the hiatus, we released a few singles, just standalone singles, and one song in particular called Worship Decay ended up just getting a really good playlisting spot in like the biggest Spotify metal playlist, and it just kind of kept drawing attention to us. So I think a lot of people discovered us from that point onwards as well, with like Spotify playlisting. That kind of thing really helps.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about your set list for this tour as well, because you haven't been here for a while. Does that change what you guys are going to plan for your set list for Australia?
We definitely always try and cover, especially on headline tours and shows, covering every album, trying to like showcase, all the different records and try and mix things up as much as possible. Admittedly, when we released the album before last, called Cycle of Suffering, that one came out. We just came back from our hiatus, announced this record, and then we went into like full lockdown like a week or two later. So we never got to tour that record. So there'll be a bunch of songs off that one. The new record still, it's just coming up to a year anniversary, but it still feels like, the new record. So that one gets a lot of love in the set. But the most important thing is just the new songs just go down so much better live. And I think it's, even fans of our old stuff, like there's no denying that the new songs were kind of written with the live environment in mind, and they just end up hitting so much harder and being a lot more intense and fun to play. But yeah, we definitely try and mix the set up.
Was there a reason why those newer tracks were written with that in mind? I mean, we get a lot of requests for for tracks like Servitude and things like that from Dormant Heart. But was there a reason why the tracks on Cycle of Suffering and A Sign of Things to Come were kind of written with a live setting in mind?
Yeah, just because we never used to. And part of the reason that we went on hiatus was I was kind of frustrated with the last tour we did. I just wasn't finding I was enjoying the shows as much as I could have been. And we put up a lot of, well, I definitely put up a lot of kind of restrictions on what Sylosis could do. And I was too worried that people might see us as some sort of like, we didn't want to be seen as a metalcore band when we kind of put out our first record. We really wanted to kind of separate ourselves off. So we didn't play anything that resembled a breakdown, even though we, grew up listening to like Pantera and they had loads of like super simple chuggy riffs. So I think we kind of missed, or I was definitely missing that element. I was finding that I just wanted to play super heavy, intense songs live, and some of the stuff we were doing up to the hiatus was a bit too, I just have to stand in one spot and really focus on my guitar playing and that kind of thing. Whereas now we're a bit more unbridled and we kind of just do what we want and not worry as much about, appeasing like the elitist fans and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we just wanted the live show to be more fun and like more intense and heavy. So that's just kind of, we wrote the new stuff to kind of with mosh pits in mind.
Yeah. It sounds like that's put you in a really good frame of mind as well. Does that mean that your creativity is at a high at the moment because you are in such a good headspace?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's made a big difference. And I always looked to bands when I was a kid that got heavier and heavier, and I always loved that. So for me, when I was, a young teenager, I'd look at like the Pantera trajectory where they just got heavier and heavier. Like Great Song and Tranquil was like super intense, and they were doing like arenas on that record. And to me, it was like, that was what I looked to. Like, you really want, if you get into a band because they're heavy, and then they get heavier, it's like, yes. As a fan, I was just so stoked on that. Same with Slipknot. I was obsessed with Slipknot when they came out. The first record, I was just the right age to be like super hooked on that. And then when Iowa came out and it was even heavier, or like a lot more death metal stuff was coming out, I was like, yes. So I always want to kind of get heavier as we go on.
Yeah. I got to admit, I love it going that way, but I hate it going the other way. There's so many bands out there that I find these days that they start off really heavy and then all of a sudden it's like they realize that they need a commercial radio hit. And then when that song takes off, then they become that kind of band playing that all the time. I hate that.
I don't think you necessarily need to do that. I think sometimes maybe so, but like I said, like Pantera and Slipknot to me as a kid were the bands that showed that, metal fans are like, when they get into a band, they're like super into it.
Yeah.
And if you stick to your guns and stay like playing super heavy stuff, it doesn't mean that you can't grow as a band, because those bands were like I said, Pantera, when they put out Great Southern Tranquil, they were like one of the biggest metal bands on the planet, and they were just getting heavier. So that was kind of what I wanted to aspire to, just being super heavy.
Definitely. Well, mate, I know we are right out of time. I know you need to go, but to finish off, what would you like to say to all of your Aussie fans out there before they go out and grab tickets for these amazing shows?
Well, to any of our fans that have been with us since the early days, apologies that it's taken us so long to get back. Appreciate anyone that stuck with us. And to the new fans, come get a ticket, come see us for the first time. It's going to be fun. I think the band is like full of energy and like reinvigorated now, so we're playing better than we ever have, and the shows are way more fun and intense. So yeah, very excited, and just looking forward to meeting a bunch of new people out there.